Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 320. My name is Adam Patterson. With me today, we got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, what's up? What's going on?
Same old.
All right.
Just hanging out. Just hanging out on a Sunday afternoon, talking about some movies.
Oh, hell yeah. Mind if I join?
No.
Cool.
I implore you to join me.
Good.
This week on the show, we're going to be reviewing Sam Blitz Bazawule's The Burial of Kojo. I'll be sitting down for an interview with director William Dickerson, whose film No Alternative is coming out this week. We'll also be talking about someone watching on the watch list, going over this week's new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you can help support Film Pulse on Patreon at patreon.com/filmpulse for just $1 a month, and it will help us out a great deal. And before we get into things this week, I have to comment on the passing of Agnes Varda.
Yeah.
First of all, I think that the film world lost a prolific figure this week, but also we were literally just talking about her last week.
Yeah, it's weird. It happens. I don't know if I want to say a lot, but it happens enough that we recognize it. That either
it's slightly bizarre.
Either someone that we just talked about when we're done recording passes away, or someone that we know we're going to be talking about going into recording, which happened last weekend with Larry Cohen.
The weird thing about the Larry Cohen was that I had watched Bone the night before.
Yeah.
He had passed away. So it just very strange timing all around. However, it's still very sad to hear about her passing.
Watch some Vardas. Watch all.
Yeah,
all the Vardas. All.
We'll be getting into it in the watch list, but I've been going back and I made a pledge to go through Cohen's entire filmography this year, and I started going down that road. So
no turning back.
Let's talk about The Burial of Kojo. As I said earlier, this is written and directed by Sam Blitz Bazawule. I have a synopsis here. A man is trapped in a mine shaft by his vengeful brother while his daughter embarks on a magical journey to rescue him. This came out in limited release this weekend, and it is now on Netflix. A very strange Sunday Netflix release.
Correct. Also, before we get into it, I gave you a little bit about my struggles in finding this movie on Netflix, because of course, log into Netflix, it's not there on the front page anywhere, right? So I type in Burial of Kojo. Nothing comes up. Nothing.
Denied.
So I had to add the to it. Once I put in The Burial of Kojo, it shows up, right? Okay, fair enough. Click on the little check mark to add it to my list. I did that on my computer. About an hour later, go downstairs, turn on the TV, say, okay, I put in some foresight. When I load it up, it should be first right there in my list. It's not there. I don't know why. So I do the old search on the PS4, and I type in the BURI. It shows up. It shows up with the I, right? But I was a bit too quick, and I added the A right afterwards. You type in the A, disappears.
I
don't.
God.
I just don't get it.
I don't either. It should be noted, this is not a Netflix release, so this is not like a Netflix original or anything. This was just put on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not one of their releases, but it's still very strange to me that it popped up on Sunday when I I wasn't even sure that that was correct. Like, we got an email about it saying it was going to be on Netflix Sunday. I put it on the calendar and everything, but I was like, I'm not sure that this is actually correct. It seemed weird, but sure enough, it was there.
And I guess this is my only guess can be is that with the limited release, theater release, they wanted Friday and Saturday, I guess, to be solely theater as an option, and then Sunday for everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but usually what they'll do is they'll wait and put it out on Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know? Whatever. Whatever it is. So what did you think of this film?
Visually, it's pretty top notch. I love the visuals going on here. And I think any time in which it kind of just dropped the pretense of having a narrative and just kind of went like dreamlike just about, that's when everything was working. All cylinders were firing, man.
Firing all over the place. Like the opening with the they actually went back to the same visual later with the sparks, the shower of sparks.
You got that car burning,
and the flaming car.
You got the pink smoke, the upside down shots, a lot of slow-mo, and then you couple that with the music. Like anytime it was operating in that kind of configuration, it was working perfectly for me. Anytime it stepped out of that and was kind of working in the narrative framework, where it was kind of just more so not necessarily a straightforward movie, but a little more just less experimental, or less visual. And that was the only time that I thought was a little bit shaky.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It did start to lose me at certain points during the narrative, because it felt a little plodding at times, especially like towards the beginning when they were kind of setting everything up, and like when the brother first came back, and I was just like, all right, I'm starting to feel it's starting to feel a little dry. But I thought that the periodic visual flourishes, we touched on it already, like the drone work was fantastic in this. There's one scene, we already talked about a handful of things that were amazing. There's this really great drone, I think it was a drone shot of her like just sort of running down the road, and she's like in white, and there's like the green is just completely surrounding her, and she's just like running down the road, and there's just this really amazing drone shot, and then like that was in slow motion for part of it, and that just looked so incredible. The upside down shots I thought looked really good too. I liked all the upside down stuff that they did.
Yes, especially the very first upside down with where they introduced the Crow Man.
Mm-hmm.
He's upside down on a horse, and you have this kind of like pink lavender sky. Like there's a lot of striking imagery here.
Yeah, he would periodically shoot things in reverse, so it would be like rewinding. So like it'd be like somebody smoking a cigarette in reverse. And I thought all that looked really good too. And that coupled with the really, really great soundtrack, the really great score, it almost reminded me of Beasts of the Southern Wild in certain regards.
In some aspects, yeah. And I think that was the showering sparks.
Yeah, kind of showering sparks.
It sparks that connection, and then it's difficult to let go of it.
Yeah, I think that the music also sounded some at times, not the whole way through, but at times it sounded similar to Ben Zeitlin's score in Beasts of the Southern Wild, and also like the use of the slow-mo, and also just the general tone, where it's sort of this we see it from this young girl's perspective, and they there is this almost supernatural fantasy element to it.
Yeah, and she's trying, which, she's trying to help her dad and everything. But to go back, because we do this a lot with the synopsis, it's interesting because what's stated in that synopsis doesn't transpire until like the latter half of the film, and then all of that takes up about like maybe 10 minutes.
Maybe that's the thing. Like I'm reading about it, and I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be this like it's like this sort of fantasy dreamlike quest. She's looking for her father who is stuck in a mine shaft, and I was expecting it to be this sort of adventure where she's maybe meeting weird characters and seeing lots of sort of surreal imagery and stuff. But literally, I don't think this is a giant spoiler or anything, but literally as soon as they find out that her dad gets buried, she doesn't even really have to look for him. She just goes to him. Like the whole like search to find the dad is very minimal, and really it seems almost inconsequential to what happens in this movie.
Yeah,
it's such a small thing.
Yeah, it is. It's just a tiny little morsel in the overall picture here.
And in the end, I was left wanting a lot more out of the narrative. I thought that there was, like, plot wise, it was just so thin. There's just not enough here. I think that we have a kernel of a really interesting idea, because her father and her uncle are setting out to do this like illegal gold mining, which I guess is a really big thing in Ghana. And there was something that happened in their past. I'm not sure if I should divulge what that is, but there was an event that happened in their past that, left the brother with a grudge, and he, pushes him into a mine shaft. And I think that exploring this idea of, this sort of very dangerous thing that people do for not a lot of money at the end of the day, this illegal gold mining, I think that that's something that's interesting to be explored, but they don't really go too deep into it. And they also touch on the idea that the Chinese have come in and are sort of taking over all of the mining operations and stuff in the area, and then like just destroying the land and polluting everything. And that's touched upon, but not really dived into too deeply either.
Which reminded me of Black Mother.
Yeah. Instantly reminded me of that.
China's the new America, I guess. Just going around destroying everything that we have. I guess we didn't destroy it thoroughly enough. China's coming in behind.
Finish it off. Finishing off the destruction of the land.
But yeah, you're right. And it's odd to me, because normally with most movies where, you kind of have this, like this movie, it operates in two modes, essentially. There's the narrative mode, and then there's the kind of like dreamy montage, kind of like music video style. And normally I'm usually complaining when a movie just takes a left turn into music video territory, does that for a couple minutes, and then comes back, because it always feels like filler, or just like, oh, let's be cool and do that. And here I wanted more of that. I was like, I don't need the narrative thing. Like, let's just drop that, and let's just get dreamy and do that stuff for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I was definitely feeling that.
I could have done with more of that, for sure.
Because especially just all of the, like, the folklore aspect of it with the crow man and the sacred bird. and her having to protect it and everything, and the in between where everyone walks upside down, like all of
Mm-hmm.
that was just. I wanted, like you, I wanted a little bit more. I wanted a little more exploration of these things, and I thought it was also a bit undercut with the telenovela that his mother watches, where it's kind of just
It's the same.
it's the mirrors
Yeah,
what's
it's a
happening.
mirror. Yeah,
And it's like,
and from what I read, that's actually they made that for this movie. They actually shot this telenovela.
I thought so, because I was like, "There's no way that's a real show."
No, they made an original telenovela for this movie.
Which, I mean, that's dedication. But again, it's like, one, it's not there a whole lot, so I don't know if he had to dedicate that much time to it.
Yeah, it shows up like twice,
Yeah, and
maybe
then,
3 times.
secondly, it's just a reiteration of the main plot. What's the theme that's going on there? It's just that again with different people.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that they really love those there for some reason, but I also don't really think it was necessary to dedicate time to showing that and having it be a parallel of what's happening in the movie. I'm just not sure that's necessary.
Yeah,
Again, I'll just reiterate. I think that the visuals in this were just so strong that that's really what carried the movie for me, almost in its entirety. Like the only reason that I'm giving this a light recommend is because it's gorgeous for the most part. There were some slip ups here and there with mostly in how things were edited, but for the most part, man, it looks pretty amazing.
yeah, and it's still I'm still not 100%. I guess adjusted to drone footage. Like I've seen plenty of drone footage where I'm like, yes, this is great, love it. That's how you use it. But there's always that when the camera on the drone makes that quick shift to like, they change its focus either to the
Mm-hmm.
left or to the right or whatever. For whatever reason, that takes me like completely out of it.
There was one drone shot. I think it was actually in the one that I previously mentioned where they like slow down the drone shot towards the end of the scene when they're about to transition into the next scene. And the way that they slowed down the shot, it looked really weird because the frame rate got really choppy and it looked a little awkward.
Mm.
And that was the only like nitpick that I had with how they did the drone shots.
Because I also did get a lot of Julie Dash vibes because she does that where she'll slow things down and kind of chop up the frame rate.
Yeah, I mean Tarantino likes to do that too.
So a whole host of people.
I mean sometimes it works. It depends on the scene, but I think in this case where it was just like slowed down pretty much just to act as a beginning of a transition into the next scene, it looked weird. Like it didn't look quite right.
Mm. But I'm with you on the light recommend. Just, I mean, based on the strength of the visuals and the score itself, those two things together, really. And I mean, it's only an hour and 20 minutes, and it's not like the narrative's a bit slight, right? There could definitely be a lot more to it, but it's not like the narrative is garbage or anything. You know what I mean? Like it's decent enough. It's intriguing enough.
Now there is a lot of narration in this. What did you think about the narration?
I I will be honest. I was a little tiny bit worried at first when it kicked off, and I was just like, oh boy. But it seemed to settle in and work in the way that it felt like, and then it ends up, finding out. It felt like I was being like told this fairy tale. So
Yeah,
it ended up working for me. Like it made
Ye-
sense that it was there.
yeah. The whole thing has this sort of fairy tale vibe to it, and I think that the narration worked in that regard. I didn't think it was yeah, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great sounding, but for the most part I thought it worked.
I'm reminded of a very early scene, which he does grab you right away with the visuals. And I love when the couple on the dock and like the lily pads are lighting up with the music.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff like that keeps it intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, right when that, from the opening of this, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna love this. Like I was fully expecting to love it, and unfortunately it just lost me a little bit as it went along, but
yeah,
still,
and I mean
it's still okay.
Yeah, it's still a recommend. And this is one of those, I don't say this often, but it could have been longer. It could have built on this. It could have made this, like a big epic journey type deal.
Right. That's what I was kind of expecting, and that's I think what I was hoping for. I don't like doing this and when we talk about movies, and I definitely don't do this when I write reviews, but I think that it would have been better if the girl's journey would have been longer, and it took her longer to find her father, and maybe she would encounter some more of these characters, or maybe had more encounters with the crow man thing. I mean, he could have turned it into this really sort of fantasy saga of like her trying to find a father who's in peril.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't go there with it, though.
There's definitely promise, though. I'm definitely going to check out his next film.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, there's a heap of talent here. So without a doubt. All right, let's give this a score. I will give The Burial of Kojo a 6.5 out of 10.
I think I'm right there with you.
And that is available on Netflix now. If you are in New York and LA, it is playing there as well in theaters. All right, so this weekend I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with director William Dickerson. He has a movie called No Alternative, which is coming out this week on VOD. So let's dive into it and have a good chat. William Dickerson, welcome. Thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to speak with us.
Well, of course, I'm happy to be back on your podcast.
The last time we spoke was back in 2014, right before the release of your feature, Don't Look Back. And at the end of the show, I asked what you were working on next, what you wanted to do next. And you'd mentioned the movie that we're going to be talking about today. So I know this was something that you had been thinking about for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
First, I want to congratulate you on its upcoming release.
Thank you.
And getting this made. And I think we should start with the boilerplate question for listeners. What is No Alternative?
Wow, that was a great intro, and I guess I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, you're right. You asked me what my next project was going to be 5 years ago. I said this, and it manifested itself. That's kind of crazy, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, No Alternative. It's a movie that's based on my first novel of the same title, and essentially it's about kids in the early 90s, specifically a brother and sister who are trying to make their way through adolescence and just the raging hormones and potential mental illnesses that they're starting to wade their ways through. Thomas Harrison, 17 years old, he's determined to start his own grunge band after the suicide of Kurt Cobain, who was his idol. In fact, that's the reason why he picked up an instrument, was because of that. This obsession with becoming the next Nirvana, per se, blinds him to what's either the mental collapse or eruption of musical genius of his little sister, Bridget, who decides to reject all the, trendy alternative music of the time and become a gangster rapper named Brita B.
So, as you said, this is based on a novel that you wrote years prior. So you certainly had a close relationship to the source material, aside from there being biographical elements in the film, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a bit. So I would assume that it was a fairly easy process to adapt this to the screen. And maybe what were some unforeseen challenges in adapting your book to the screen?
Well, in a sense, it was easier for a couple of reasons. I mean, clearly the book was there, but it actually started as a screenplay first. Back in 2007, I wrote the first draft of the script, and I felt like it was exploring, a period of time, both in my life and in other people's lives that were just really, really important to them. The early 90s, there was this pop cultural explosion happening that no one really had experienced before, and it affected so many different people. I felt like there was a lot more to say about it, and the format of a novel lended itself to that. So I decided to take the basic structure of the screenplay and transform it into a novel, which is kind of it's a looser, more stream of consciousness format. It's not as strict as a screenplay, and that was very freeing for me as a writer. And I really got into it, and it became my first novel. It was published in 2012. And then, I went back to the screenplay, but writing the novel informed a lot. It really helped me not only develop the characters, but also even like when it comes to dialogue, like, I had expanded all these scenes, and the backstory that was at one point only in my head was now on paper. So I actually, through the process of writing the novel, I learned a lot more about my characters, and that really helped me refine the screenplay when I went back to it. So yeah, it was definitely, having the book, both the process of writing the book and having the book there when I was rewriting the script made the whole thing a bit easier. And frankly, directing the actors it was a lot easier because usually, as a director, you write up these detailed character biographies, sit down with the actors and go through all the details of the characters and their lives. But here I was like, well, you want to know about the character? Here's the novel. Take a read. And actually, it might sound weird or perhaps condescending, but like Catherine Irby, she was like, she read the book and she's like, wow, I know these characters inside and out. Actually, they really appreciated having all that texture to kind of fall back on it and explore before filming.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's a lot easier for them having that source material there and like you said, knowing these characters inside and out. They don't have to make these sort of broad judgments about the characters. Like they're already there, they're already written, and all they have to do is just embody those characters.
Yeah, exactly. And for this particular movie, because it's such a character piece, that was very helpful. And also there's so many. Obviously, it's a drama, and I take a lot of dramatic license, but much of it is autobiographical. So I was able to really speak to how I actually knew some of these characters in real life, and that having that firsthand knowledge also really helped me direct the actors in as authentic a way as possible. But also having the book there was good because so much of this is personal and emotional, and there's a lot of trauma involved. It was kind of nice to not at times have to talk about it, and they were able to kind of do their own thing with the book, and it was kind of a relief for me in a sense.
I do want to touch on that if you don't mind. I know that this is sort of a sensitive subject, but I couldn't help but think about this as I was watching the film. So it is a fictional story, but the character Bridget, played by Michaela Cavazos, is based on your sister, who
Correct.
did perform under the name Brita B. She was a rapper, and you said previously that the book was a plea for survival for your sister. Yes. But unfortunately, in the time between the book and the movie, your sister passed away. And I was wondering, did this impact your approach to the film? Because if I'm getting the timeline right, it was in between the two.
You're exactly right. Yeah. So when I wrote the book in 2000, or when I published the book in 2012, my sister was alive. I mean, at that point, she had tried to commit suicide several times, and she was hopelessly addicted to drugs and suffering from borderline personality disorder. And, you know, when I wrote the book, a part of me wanted the book to be sort of a wake-up call for her, you know, because there's a character in it that commits suicide who's not her, but who's close to her. And it's this cataclysmic event in this family's life. And I thought, well, if she were to read this and see how something so terrible affects everybody, how that terrible event affects everybody around it, you know, she might think, oh, like that, my behavior is causing this, and I should, you know, behave better. But kind of in hindsight, that was a naive point of view, in my opinion. And since then, I've learned that mental illness and suicidal thoughts in particular are, you know, they're not, you don't decide to have them. They're intrinsic. I often equate my sister's illness to terminal cancer, right? We all knew she was going to die. I mean, my mother always knew she was going to be burying her daughter. But when that event happened, and my sister died, of course, it's still so hard to believe because she's so young, and there's a stigma surrounding mental illness in the society, and a general sense that people think, oh, we can just snap out of it. Mm-hmm. People who are mentally ill, like we can turn it off. But no, you can't. I mean, it's a physical disorder. The brain is very much a part of the physical body. If you have a broken bone, you can't just say, oh, I decide my leg's not broken anymore. That's not how it works. And that I really learned a lot more about that specific idea after she died. And that really informed the movie part of it. Just sort of the inevitability of death and suicide being something that many people cannot control. That's actually a physical, biological illness. And that is, if anything positive comes out of this film, I hope it's that. It's, you know, the idea that people can look at suicide and say, you know, that it's obviously terrible and tragic, but it's a natural part of being a human being. You know, if we can stop this, but we can't really stop it until we destigmatize it and treat it like any other illness.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a scene early in the film that features Bridget seeing a psychiatrist, and she clearly wants to talk to him. But instead of listening to her and listening to her problems and letting her sort of expose herself, he just writes her a script for antidepressants. And I think that this is one of the most important scenes in the film, because not only does it expose Bridget's need to express herself and her thoughts, but which she later does through her rapping, but it also exposes one of the flaws in how I think we as a society treat mental illness. And while I think it was certainly a bigger problem in the 90s, I think it's come a long way in how we react to mental illness and handle it. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about the themes, these themes specifically from the film, and if it was an intentional statement that you were making regarding that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you would focus on that scene, because that in the original script, that scene didn't happen until about 20 pages into the movie, into the script. But in the editing process, my editor had the idea of bringing that up to the front, because thematically it says it all in a way, right? You just get it out in front, and, you know, you detail in the first 2 minutes of the movie, you know, we detail who this character is, what she's suffering from and how society is reacting to how she's suffering. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, yes, historically speaking, it's very accurate, because in the early 90s, I mean, that was really the beginning of this just invasion of SSRIs, like, Prozac and Paxil and Zoloft and all these new drugs, these wonder drugs hit the market. And one of the problems with having such a quick rollout of those types of drugs without having any time to analyze the effects of them, what happened was so many young kids, I mean, under 18, and my sister had been prescribed these drugs since she was like 9-10 years old. I mean, it's now you think about that, and that's very concerning. But what happened was you start to prescribe these drugs to kids whose brains are still developing, right? The chemicals in their system are not as advanced as they will be as when they're adults, and unfortunately, the drugs alter their brain chemistry permanently. So, and I think most states in America right now, I believe it's illegal to prescribe those types of drugs to people under the age of 16, but it wasn't then. So I have no doubt that my sister was a victim of that type of overprescribing. It's kind of not only just having those types of drugs available to people, who are 10 or 11 years old, but the mindset of a psychiatrist to say, okay, well, try this drug for a month. If that doesn't work, I'll put you on this. See how that works. If that doesn't work, I'll put you on this. But what they're doing, unbeknownst to them, or maybe, who knows, maybe some of them knew it, was that they were getting them addicted to these drugs. And by the time my sister was finally diagnosed with borderline personality, which can only be treated with therapy, so you can't, drugs really don't do anything for it. But by the time she got that diagnosis, she was totally addicted to drugs. She couldn't function without these drugs in her system. And if she had survived, let's say she had survived and she had her mental illness under control, she would never have been able to get off those drugs, and her liver would have failed in about 10 years just by being on these prescribed drugs. Yeah. So it was a major problem, and it continues to be. But like you said, we're starting to become aware of those issues because we're seeing these casualties, like the casualty of my sister and other people who were prescribed these drugs when they were so young. So, and that is part and parcel with the idea of listening. Mental illness. Yes, of course, there are wonderful drugs that if prescribed properly and taken properly can do wonders for people, right? But sometimes the drug is not the answer. And I know in the case of my sister, she was kind of conditioned to believe, there's an answer to this, and the answer is a pill. If I take this pill, it will do this. But talking about it and discussing it, she rarely did it because she didn't want to feel embarrassed. She'd talk about it to her doctor, but she was just unable to talk about it to her friends and her family. And because feeling like she had to hide it, that actually did a lot more harm than good. And I'm hoping that we still, as a society, we still have a long way to go. But if we can start talking about it and being more open about it, as we are with other illnesses, say like a cold or, an injury like a broken leg, then I really think that a good percentage of mentally ill people will just increasingly get better and just have a more normal, will be able to live a more normal life, because they put so much pressure on themselves, self-imposed pressure because of what society expects.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that a lot of, I think it's a double, it sort of should be taken with, attacked from two fronts. Like the drugs, like I was never someone who was against things like Prozac and Zoloft and stuff. I was on Paxil for many years. Mm-hmm. But I think that the other side of it is the therapy side. I think that you need someone to talk to. And I think that, as you said, just blindly medicating people that's not the way to go about it. These drugs help on a medical, on a chemical level, but on an emotional level, I think that people that suffer from depression or other mental illness, they need someone to talk to about this. And like bottling it up and never keeping it, always keeping it inside is never healthy.
No, it's not. And what I try to get at a little bit in the movie is that when Bridget decides to take this alternate persona of Brita B, right, a persona that's just so far outside the spectrum of her normal life, that in and of itself is therapeutic. That lets her get outside of her own head by becoming someone else, right? And I think that perhaps can serve as a metaphor for people who are struggling with mental illness, who feel like they can't be themselves. Why can't you? Everyone should be, but we're so, we're conditioned to be so afraid of what other people are going to think of us. God forbid someone should find out, that we're suffering, then they're gonna, we're gonna somehow suffer more. But and I got to see this firsthand with my sister when she took this went out and became this rapper. People were really into her stuff, but part of it was like half the audience loved it, thought she was brilliant. Other half were kind of like, is this girl for real? Like, this is nuts. And then part of her maybe like, is she like doing this sort of like Andy Kaufman self-aware performance art? And I think maybe they were all of those things. Yeah. But she really enjoyed herself, and she, in those moments, she forgot about her own struggles because she was living the struggles of someone else.
Yeah.
This rapper.
And I think that metaphor really comes across to great effect in the film. And I believe in my review, I even likened it to a Kaufman-esque performance.
Yes, you did. Yes.
And I think that in a lot of ways, I believe that Bridget and your sister were ahead of their time with this, because now we have a lot of these like alt comedians and stuff, this big alt comedy scene that's coming up, and we have a lot of these sort of comedians or like comedic performance art people that are out there. And I think in a lot of ways she was just way ahead of her time with what she was doing, and I think that it was really great what she was doing.
Oh, cool. That's kind of you to say. I mean, yeah, I think she, some people who do suffer from mental illness are among the most creative people, I've ever met. Right. And I don't know if there's a direct correlation to how the brain works, inside of those who are mentally ill, but she was an incredibly creative person. She was a painter, writer, obviously a musician, an artist. And she was doing something that I'd never seen anybody do before. And yeah, it was the mid 90s. I think it was like even before Eminem. Either of the Beastie Boys, right? We're talking about like, what white preppy rappers, but it was also kind of a comment on that too, right? She was very smart. But again, unfortunately, by the time that she passed away, just like most of those smarts and cleverness, they were all just ripped away by the drug use over the years. It's just, terribly sad.
So this takes place in the 90s, as we were talking about, very shortly after the death of Kurt Cobain, which ushered in sort of the post-grunge era. I would say that that's probably when the post-grunge era started. And music plays a huge role in the film. You cover the alternative scene, but you also cover a little bit of the underground hip hop scene with what Bridget does. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you implemented music in the film and how you chose the music that was featured in the film.
Sure. Yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, music is a character in this movie. I myself had a grunge band in the 90s, and there's a big part of me that never left the 90s. I have such affinity. Yeah, right on. I have such an affinity for that time, and I really think that time informed me so much as, both an individual and an artist in so many different ways. So, I always knew that I wanted to tell a story that took place in the 90s, and because there's so many autobiographical elements of it, naturally I went back to my life as a musician. The original music you hear in the movie, the Latter-day Saint songs, those are songs that my band performed. That's our name. We're called the Latter-day Saints. We're called that then, and we're called that now. And those songs that you hear were recorded 20 to 25 years ago. And we kind of had a brush with fame. We came really close to getting signed by a label, and then it just, of course, at that point we broke up and fell apart, and I moved out to LA to make movies, and but we always kind of stayed together and jammed every time I went back to New York, where they're from, and kind of kept the dream alive. And in a way, this movie has kind of brought us back together, because not only is that's an authentic slice of music from that time, but it's also music we've been playing for the past 20 years, and to hear it on a soundtrack to the film is pretty amazing. The rapping, all the raps you hear in the movie are literally verbatim my sister's raps.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't, I can't possibly take credit for that genius. It's all her. And we re-recorded it with Michaela Cavazos performing, because my sister Brianna had her tapes and they were great, but they were very lo-fi, and we had to record them more professionally. And I also knew I wanted to have a nice, just general soundtrack that reflected the music of the time. And we really lucked out. I mean, we had wonderful music supervisors who helped us, get songs from Mudhoney, Sebadoh, Lisa Loeb. I mean, incredible artists of that time. For like really, not I hesitate to say next to nothing, but really, I mean, it was kind of, they were all really on board and behind the project, and ultimately we left with a soundtrack of over 30 songs. Both original stuff, unknown bands, known bands, hip hop, and all from that general time period. And it really works. I wanted the movie to be a time capsule for that period, but I also picked specific songs, obviously, that work dramatically for those specific scenes they're used in. And we just, got really, really lucky.
Yeah. And I think that works in the film's favor as well, because one of the pitfalls that I see in these movies that take place in the 80s or the 90s is that you have these sort of tropes that, remember this band, and you throw in the various pop culture elements from the decade, and then you use that, and it comes off as feeling like kind of lame, to be honest, kind of cheap and lame. But the way that you handled the time period, it felt very natural, very organic, and I didn't see any of that sort of just pandering, that nostalgia pandering that tends to happen in certain movies and TV shows that take place in the near past.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we did pay specific attention to that, right? Because there were certain moments where I'd really love Today by the Smashing Pumpkins for this scene. And even if we could get it, there's the other part of me said, well, if we have Today by the Smashing Pumpkins, then the scene becomes that song. There's so much baggage there. It's such a huge song that for a character movie about, nameless, kids in the suburbs, that could be any suburb in America, would kind of defeat the purpose. And you're right. When I hear, if I'm watching a movie or television show that takes place in the past, and there's a big hit song, odds are that if those characters are unique and cool and interesting, they're probably not listening to that huge song, right? It's just, but the filmmakers are putting it in there for nostalgic purposes, and to really scream, oh, this is from the 90s, or oh, we're in the 80s. Well, I think those choices are too obvious. And these teenagers, they've been, believe me, they've heard Today by the Smashing Pumpkins, but they're beyond that. They're listening to more interesting stuff, right? At this point.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the two main characters that you have in this film, these are kids who are probably into really into zine culture and stuff like that, and they're not going to be listening to the top 40 hits. They're going to be listening to the deep cuts. Some of the stuff that's probably been lost to time at this point.
Yeah, and in fact, the probably the most famous song on the soundtrack is the Lisa Loeb song that we use, and I specifically put it on the radio in a car when Thomas drives Bridget to school, because that's the song that would be on the radio, right? Yeah. They wouldn't be listening to it in their room or in the garage. So yeah, everything was really used. All the music was used as authentically as we could we could use it. And yeah, I mean, I think just all around, I'm really, really thrilled with the soundtrack. And sort of an unanticipated bonus from this film is that we have the soundtrack being released on a label.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and it in fact it was selected by Record Store Day as one of their exclusive vinyl releases.
Oh, that's awesome.
Super cool. So on April 13th, I don't know if you're familiar with Record Store Day, but it's yes, but for those out there listening who aren't, most independent record stores in the country and also in the UK release a limited amount of titles that Record Store Day kind of approves. And it'll be on the shelves in indie record stores all across the country for 3 months. And they picked No Alternative, and it's going to be everywhere. It's incredible. I've been waiting online at Record Store Days for the past few years, and to think that my soundtrack's going to be one of the records there this year is just like I'm still having trouble absorbing it.
That's so great.
It's so cool.
That's so great. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the characters. How much of you was in Connor Proft's character of Thomas?
Yes. Well, I mean, there's certainly things closer to the end of the movie that we diverge on for reasons that if I were to talk about, I'd spoil the film. Yeah. But I would say, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of me and him. I was the drummer in my band. He's the drummer in Latter-day Saints in the film. I tended to be the guy who was all kind of business and wanted to, okay, well, this is our chance to do something with ourselves and become commercial. As was the guitarist, who's based on my bandmate Liam McKiernan. While the other two, my other two bandmates were more specifically focused on just the artistic elements. So it was a kind of natural clash between art and commerce. The household is very similar. I mean, my father was a Supreme Court judge. That's what Harry Hamlin plays. He plays a county court judge running for Supreme Court, and very, very stoic. And my father was a Green Beret in Vietnam, and he was a judge. So you can't really do anything in the house without him just literally judging every every move you make, and it was very hard to live up to someone like that. And the Catherine Irby character is very similar to my mom in the sense that she's like a saint. I mean, just the neutralizer in the house, trying to make sure everything, especially with my sister and her illness, making sure that everything didn't explode every 5 minutes. So the Harrison household is very similar. Things are truncated and revved up, a lot dramatically. Like we never got, the fights between the band. I mean, theoretically, we got into similar arguments, but it never came to blows, right? I kind of took everything to the next level. I was aware of my sister rapping, I think, and in the movie, I wanted Thomas to be totally unaware and her doing her own thing by herself. I mean, we didn't hang out with each other because we were, especially in high school, because we were a few years apart. But I knew a lot more about her rapping in my life than the Thomas character knows about her in her life. And I wanted that to happen because later in the movie, when he finds her mixtape, I wanted him to really, look at her and be like, "This is my sister. I had no idea." Right? I wanted that moment to be
there's a bigger impact.
Exactly, 100%. Exactly. It's like you can never. And I talk about it more in the book, but it's one of those things where you think you're, as close as you can possibly be to someone, but they'll always be a stranger. You can never get inside someone's head, right? And I wanted that moment to be reflective of that. But yeah, I mean, it's very authentic. I mean, as far as like there are romantic relationships. It's funny because I had the Jackie characters inspired by several different romances I had in my life. It's not just one girl. So I had my first love, my first girlfriend saw the movie in New York. And, there's, at first she seems very sweet in the movie. Then it takes a turn for the dark. And she was like, I was like, I hope your parents know that I was like the good girl portion of that. I wasn't the bad girl portion of that. I was like, look, it's an amalgamation of a lot of other things, and there's a lot of dramatic license in it. So it's been frankly, it's been very nerve-wracking for me to show this to people who I know, because I'm constantly getting like, oh, that was sort of based on me, or that was this. It's like, well, and I don't want to say yes or no because I'm afraid to like,
Right.
offend them.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah.
You have a really great cast in this. I mean, you'd already met. We had talked about Connor Proft, Michaela Cavazos, Harry Hamlin, Catherine Irby, and then Chloe Levine plays Jackie, the character that you mentioned, and I really love what she's doing. I mean, she's great. She's on that new season of the OA that just came out on Netflix. Like last week or something. Yeah. She was in The Ranger, which I really loved. A really great horror movie. So very strong cast in this. How was it working with a cast like this?
It was tremendous. I mean, I clearly, seasoned veterans like Harry and Catherine. It was such a pleasure to work with them, and they were so kind. Literally no egos at all. They were just super, super sweet and loved the project, right? And it was really just fantastic. And look, this movie was as indie can get, and they had to slum it for a week or so, and they had no problems really, and they had a great time. So that was a thrill. But I have to say, this young cast, there's something really special about kind of getting in on the ground floor with talent that is just starting to bud, right? And these actors are just fantastic. We spent a long time casting. I'm based in LA, but we shot in New York, so we used the casting director Judy Bowman, who's out of New York, to cast locally. And it was about a 2 to 3 month process of watching self-tape after self-tape and auditioning. We auditioned people 2 to 3 times, and we finally got to a point. I couldn't find a good Bridget at all. And the way I found Michaela was I'd shot a proof of concept video for No Alternative several years ago, and she had auditioned for it, but I didn't cast her. But I thought about her because I thought her audition was really good. So when we were in the midst of casting Bridges in New York, I couldn't find anybody. I was getting really worried. So I contacted her and asked her to self-tape. Would you self-tape this scene and send it to me? And she sent it to me. And it was, I swear, the best audition I've ever seen. It was so great. And I was so impressed that I was like, you're coming to New York. We got to make this movie, and on set, they just so, maybe it's the vigor of youth or something, but they were just so game and just so on top of everything. And the energy that they brought to the set was just incredible. It invigorated me. And we had time, they were open to, rehearsing, we had a good week of doing read-throughs and rehearsing before we even got to set, because we knew on this type of budget, we're not going to have a lot of time for a lot of takes, right? If I'm over take 3, I'm doing something wrong, right? Because I got to figure it out. But the more time you're able to spend with the actors, and the greater the rapport that you can create with them, the easier and quicker it'll go on set. And really, everybody was just terrific. And like you said, I mean, Chloe's breaking out. Arya, who plays Elias, he's on the CW show Legacies now. He's a regular. He's a terrific actor. He's blowing up. I have no doubt all these actors are going to be doing really, really great things and soon.
Yeah, they're all fantastic in this movie. You'd mentioned the proof of concept video. And I believe this was a crowdfunded project, right?
Yeah, it started in 2015. My sister passed in 2014. Then, obviously after a whole lot of grieving, I came to the conclusion, like, if I'm going to do anything right now, it's going to be this movie, no matter what. Because I never thought I could make this movie on a tiny budget, right? I would need a smallish budget, but not a tiny, nearly micro budget size amount of money, because of the amount of locations, the amount of actors, the time period, right? Period piece is always more expensive. But, it was something that I just decided to do. And nowadays you can't even, I directed 3 films, and even doing that, it's almost impossible to take a script out, no matter how low budget it is, and pitch yourself to make the movie, unless you do what's called a proof of concept. It's just becoming part and parcel with taking a script out, because a producer wants to, you might go into a meeting and, pitch it great. They love the script, they love your vision as a director, but inevitably they'll say, well, how can I let my investors know that you can direct it? How can I put them at ease? Well, I want to show them that you can direct it by literally seeing a proof of concept. So what I did was, I knew I had to do that. So I shot a 4 or 5 minute scene, one of Bridget's rapping performances, that I cast myself, shot for nothing with my DP out here, and launched my first crowdfunding campaign, which I never wanted to do because it's essentially begging for money. And I don't know anybody who likes doing that, but because this project was so close to my heart, and because it allowed me a platform to discuss mental illness and to put a spotlight on destigmatizing it, I felt like, you know what, this crowdfunding would be great, because, people don't necessarily contribute to movies; they contribute to people and to causes. And I knew I had a good cause. So we started that process, and we raised a good amount of money. We raised about $80,000 on Indiegogo, but the best part of it was that it generated a buzz. People started to write about it, and people started to contact me saying, "Oh, I saw the crowdfunding campaign. It was written up in this, or I saw this interview here. I would love to contribute, but I want to do more than contribute. I want to invest." So I got a few investors who found out about it through the crowdfunding process, but ultimately came on board as investors, and they put a heck of a lot more money into it, but would be participating on the profit end of things. So once I started to get investors to bringing in money, I was able to go to other private sources who, contacts I've developed over the years, and pitch them the project. And since there was money already in the pot, per se, with the crowdfunding and these other investors, I was able to bring more money to the table, and we raised our budget that way. It took about a year, but the crowdfunding was just absolutely essential in that respect.
Oh, that's great. We used to interview people every week on this show who were in the midst of crowdfunding a film. So I'm always interested to know how the crowdfunding process went for you. As you said, you went through Indiegogo. Mm-hmm. Did you, being your first crowdfunded project, were there any, what would be maybe some tips for someone who's looking to crowdfund their own film?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really like a full-time job, no joke.
That's what everybody says. Everybody, I've interviewed probably 15 people that have crowdfunded projects, and they're like, you have to dedicate all of your time, every day, just to that project.
It's absolutely relentless. And some tips I can give. Well, one would be, even before you launch the campaign, you need a good 6 months to build your social media networks, right? Because when you launch a crowdfunding campaign, who are you launching it to? I mean, obviously, to a certain extent, you can count on family and friends, but in order to have a successful crowdfunding campaign, you need to break through just those connections, right? And to do that, you need to build your awareness on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I mean, those are the three main ones at the time that I used. And I spent a good 6 months just, following people who had similar sensibilities, who, followed other, or, maybe organizations or other celebrities or other, movies that were confronting similar themes, things that had to do with mental illness and borderline personality, the 90s and grunge. So I basically I became a part of these communities through social media and interacted with them for several months. And then because of that, my followers grew, and people were interested in the film. I started to kind of seed the idea out there. So ultimately, when the movie launched, there are people out there who I never met. We're friendly through social media, but I don't know who these people are, and they were ready for the movie. And once the movie came out, then it started to be shared, right? So that is a really important process. Now, I don't think anyone can just launch a crowdfunding campaign and without doing that. I think that would be a total mistake. And then when you do launch it, like you said, it's literally every day, every 5 minutes I'm on my phone communicating, posting, checking and re-strategizing and monitoring the process.
Yeah, I think that is such a good piece of advice, because I've seen some crowdfunding projects out there that look really promising, but it also seems like these people are just advertising or trying to market this into a vacuum where there's like nobody that's gonna see this thing. Yeah. And recently, in recent years, I've been getting like PR emails from people who hire PR companies to push their crowdfunding project. And I think that would be a viable solution too, is to get this project out to press and have them, be keeping their eye on it. I think that is like one of the most important things, because there's so many of them out there these days that they can very easily get buried. And I shudder to think how many great projects never happened because they just didn't get enough exposure.
Yeah, you're right. There's so many great ideas and potentially great movies out there, but how do you break through everything else? I mean, you have to be seen, and I think crowdfunding is a very personal experience. People contribute because they're moved emotionally, right? It's not an intellectual decision because you're literally giving money away. It's not an investment. So you need to connect with them emotionally. So the two ways to do that, first of all, you need to find some sort of angle in your movie that can connect with someone emotionally, and you have to have already interacted with with people, right? Because then you form a bond with them, or at least the community that they're a part of, and then they start to recommend you, and it just grows from there. But yeah, I mean, I think that is absolutely essential. If you don't do that, it's unfortunately, I think the project is dead before it begins.
Yeah, let's plug your film a little bit more. So it got picked up by Gravitas Ventures. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I see Gravitas as a company who is a champion of the indie film. I really love what they do. And how's it been working with Gravitas in releasing the film?
Oh, they've been great. In fact, this is the second time a movie of mine has been released through them. They released my first movie, Detour.
Oh, did they?
Way back when.
Oh.
Yeah. So I've already had and that's what's also cool about them. I mean, I have a pre-existing relationship with them. We've always kept in touch. And in fact, I've had over the years, I've had some producers even get in contact with me saying, "Oh, so-and-so from Gravitas recommended I talk to you because they think you're a good director." So they're not hands off. They're really into promoting the artistry of films. And, obviously from a business standpoint, there's so many more indie films out there that it makes sense to focus on these indie films and pick up a lot of them. But they want to make sure that the movies are good. And I just watched one of their latest movies, Abducted in Plain Sight. That's their big documentary that's out right now that they distributed. Man. It was really, really good.
Wow. That movie was crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. But it's a great film, and Gravitas got it. But you don't get lost with them because they know what it takes to make an indie film. It's not like a bigger company picking up your movie, and they're used to these big, huge budget films. They know what it takes to not only produce a film of this budget, but also they know how to market them. It's very the marketing is very grassroots. It's extremely, there's a lot of data analytics that go into where it's going to be online, where to place ads, where, what platforms are going to distribute the movie through. And they have, I believe, the largest digital platform reach in North America.
Yeah, I believe they were pretty early adopters of the VOD model. I remember them being like when VOD first started becoming a thing, like it was largely just like kind of, I hesitate to say trash, but it wasn't like a lot of the VOD stuff that was coming out in early days that was like day and date stuff was like not very good. It's probably what you would imagine being like straight to VHS or straight to DVD titles. And then Gravitas came in, and I think that they were one of the early companies that was like, look, we can make it work with like good quality movies and do this same model, and then people will still be it's not like it's a stigma behind the idea of video on demand. And now, of course, you know, you have giant movies that are like coming straight to Netflix and stuff, and I think that they were like on the forefront of that.
Oh, they totally were. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they were one of the first companies, you know, where you could look at a movie that they're distributing straight to digital and say like, oh, that has cachet. And that's a really big difference, because like you said, it used to be the kiss of death. Oh, going to direct to VOD, or, you know, it was akin to direct to VHS or direct to DVD. But now the stigma is almost completely gone. And, you know, and that was one of the big reasons why we didn't, with the alternative, we decided not to do a theatrical release, because 99 point whatever of the audience is going to be watching it, even if it was in the theater, is going to be watching it digitally anyway. So why spend the resources on that, you know, in the first place, and just go directly to where everybody's going to be watching it. And the film's been on the screen. It's been premiering at film festivals across the country, and I've been able to see it on screen a number of times. So I've had that experience. But nowadays, you know, Gravitas, you know, they distribute your movie and it goes right to digital. That's a legit great release to be proud of. Really, the stigma is kind of just not there anymore, and that's a really great thing.
I think so too, especially, you know, I grew up in a relatively small suburban town that had just the main multiplexes, and I was unable to see any kind of indie or art films at all. And I think that VOD really opened the doors for people who live in these like non-metropolitan areas to see really great indie and art films, and they can see it the day they come out. They don't have to wait like, you know, months and months and months until maybe they can find a copy on eBay or Amazon, you know, buy it on DVD. And I think that I think it's always great. I mean, we always speak very highly of VOD on this show and on the site, and I think that it's great that Gravitas is putting out your stuff. It's coming out this Tuesday, right? April 2nd.
That's right.
Final question: what do we got coming up? What's next for William Dickerson?
Oh man, wow. Well, this is interesting, because the last time he asked me this question, it came true. So I have to be, what do I want to do next? Because whatever I say here is going to come true.
It's prophetic. It's going to happen.
Well, okay. Well, there are 3 projects. Aside from the 24/7 promotion that I'm doing for this movie, I'm you know, trying to carve out a little time for these 3 other projects I'm working on. Two are scripts that I wrote with my writing partner Dwight. You know, one has to do with Kurt Cobain. Interestingly enough.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and the other one is it's a genre thriller. It's kind of a ghost movie about a punk rock band called the Diminished.
Okay, all right. You have my attention there.
Yeah, so those are 2 that are ready to go. I'm approaching, you know, producers right now, and then there's another big project which I really wish I could talk about. That would be, you know, I did not write, but it was written by a well-known screenwriter, and it's, maybe I can say that it takes place in the early 90s. And it's a world that I know very well, and I'm being considered for director currently. So my fingers are crossed on that, and wish I could talk more about it.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're keeping busy. I'm glad to hear that No Alternative is coming out, and there's a lot of buzz behind it. People are excited. I first saw it when it screened at Dances with Films last year.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed back then. Rewatching it now, I'm still into it. I think it looks great, by the way. And I know as far as even though it is an indie film, it still looks very great. You know, a lot of times with crowdfunded movies, you have sort of maybe a slight loss of quality there, but not in this case. I mean, it looks. I think it's probably one of your best looking films to date.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's. I appreciate you saying that. We spent a lot of time on the look, not only because we wanted to sort of dial in the feel of the '90s, but whenever you're making a movie on a low budget, you know, a kiss of death is cheap production value,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it could so easily fall into the trap of it just looks like a friggin' soap opera or something.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't look good. But my DP, Rob Craich, and I, we've known each other for years. I mean, probably like 12, no more than 15 years by now. And we've worked we basically share a brain, and he's really, really talented at what he does. And we storyboard everything. We know exactly what we want going out. And, you know, we really strive to make the best looking film possible. And I hope we accomplished, you know, a fraction of that.
And he was your DP on all your other movies, right?
Correct. Yeah, we worked together. We went to AFI together. I never actually worked together in film school, but after film school, all we've been doing is working together. In fact, he was one of the first people to buy a Red camera. So he's been working with the Red forever.
Great camera.
Yeah, so he's an expert. He's an expert at the Red, that's what we shot on. We shot all my movies on that. But yeah, we used the Red, and we used these special lenses that were like 50s or 60s Russian lenses that were retrofitted with these special filters. And I'm not being ironic when I say they're called Trump lenses, right? That's what they're called. This is before Trump became president. But I don't know why they're called Trump lenses, but we were shooting it during the election. So we kind of got a kick out of it until after he won. And then we're kind of, you know, in a different world. Yeah. But the lenses, we're able to what we were able to do is you can take out the back element and put in different shapes. And there was no other lens on the planet that can do this. And so if you put in, say, like a triangle shape in the rear as the rear element, if you use a long lens and you focus on the bokeh, the light bokeh in the background, or let's say not focus on it, and you just see the bokeh in the background, it takes on that shape, which is really interesting. So what we did was, for every act of the movie, we had different elements. So you're probably not noticing them as you're watching it, but the idea is that it kind of affects you subconsciously as the movie goes along. We coded characters and character arcs with the changing of these elements throughout the movie. So we were very aware of what it looked like and how the look would hopefully affect the audience.
Oh, that's great. William, thank you so much again for taking some time to talk with us. Congratulations on the film, and I hope to have you back on the show for the next project.
I would be thrilled to be back, Adam. I appreciate, you know, your words, and I'm glad you liked the film. And yeah, April 2nd, it'll be available pretty much everywhere, digitally and on cable. So take a look.
Thanks again to William. I will be putting this interview out as a separate post on the website as well. So if you want to just hear the interview by itself, you can check out the site. I'll probably post that up tomorrow. All right, let's dive into some of what we've been watching on the watch list. I can't remember whose turn it is.
It can be my turn.
Yeah, go for it.
I saw The Wife.
All right.
The one, right. This is the movie that Glenn Close got a nomination for. Didn't win. Got a nom. Didn't win. And if I had to pick something from this movie that would make it worthwhile to watch, like if you forced me to pick something, because if I got to pick on my own, I would say nothing. But if you forced me to pick, I guess I would say Glenn Close's performance. She's pretty good. She does a solid job in there. But the movie as a whole is just, it's not good. It's very tiresome. Pretty much you can expect every single beat. You know what's going to happen just about. And it's Jonathan Pryce plays this author, finally gets the call that he's going to get the Nobel Prize for Literature. So him and his wife, Glenn Close, they go, and along with he brings his son, who, guess what? He's a writer too, and he desperately wants his father's approval about his writing. His dad doesn't want to talk about the writing because, you know, he's in the midst of winning a Nobel Prize for Literature, but the son keeps hounding him as to be like, what do you think of my story? And he's just, I don't know how old the son's supposed to be, but he acts like he's like 13 years old. He doesn't look 13. He looks like he's in his 30s. He's just he's an absolutely pathetic human being, and he's really annoying. And of course, there's that which has tension. There's tension between um, the husband and the wife, and that's because they have a secret. And yep. And that finally comes to a head. And then Christian Slater's there, he's a journalist, and he's trying to get Jonathan Pryce to let him write his biography, and it's not happening. And he just keeps hounding the family because he's finding out some information, and it's just very, very predictable. There's really nothing exciting to it whatsoever, either visually or within the story itself. Nothing surprising. The absolute worst part is that they have these flashbacks to kind of show like the beginning stages of the relationship and like how they came to be, and they don't really help at all, so it just feels completely unnecessary, and they also look terrible. It's just a poor decision all around, and it's just so mediocre. It's just incredibly mediocre.
All right. That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's just no.
And that is The Wife. As I said last week, I was attending What the Fest again this year in New York. This is a genre film festival put on by IFC. This is their second year, and I have a post up on the site that sort of gives a summary of everything that I saw there. I didn't see as many this year as I did last year. I think I ended up seeing like maybe 7 of the 11 or 12 movies that screen there. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I will say that the highlights for me were Larry Fesseden's Depraved. So it's been quite a while since he directed a movie. And this is like, I mean, he's produced a lot of movies since then, and he's acted in a lot of movies, but this is his first time directing since I think 2013, I want to say. It's been a little bit. And I think that this is probably my favorite of his movies. I haven't seen all of his films, but I've seen a good number, and this one is really great. It's basically a retelling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that's set in modern day in Brooklyn, and it's about this war vet who has PTSD, and he is working for this pharmaceutical company on a drug that sort of brings people back to life. And he experiments on this guy who is attacked one night while walking home from his girlfriend's apartment, and he brings him back to life. And it's just about the relationship that these two have, and as he's like trying to teach him to, you know, be human again. And it's quite good. I really enjoyed this. I mean, this is like a micro budget movie, but it doesn't really show. He shoots, there's like a really long scene that takes place at the Met, which is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, because when he takes him to the Met, he's just like overwhelmed with the art and the history. And it's like Fessenden does these like sort of overlays of like where you can see like the synapses in his brain like being rewired and connecting and stuff as he's learning and becoming more human. And it's just a really great sequence. And I really enjoyed it. I do have a full review for this up on the site. Another one, this is one that a lot of people have talked about already, and I had the opportunity to see this last year at the New York Asian Film Festival, but I missed out on it, and I was super bummed because everybody was like, "Oh man, you got to see this movie. You have to see it." And that's One Cut of the Dead by Shinichiro Ueda. This is not anything that you would expect. It's a zombie movie, but it's about a director making a low budget zombie movie who gets caught up in a zombie attack while they're shooting a zombie movie. But it gets even more meta than that, and I don't want to give anything away. It is very funny. I mean, it's probably the best zombie comedy since Shaun of the Dead. And I just can't recommend it enough. The places that it goes, it's surprising. It's clever. I absolutely loved it. You got to see One Cut of the Dead.
One Cut of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. I hope it comes out soon. I'm really hoping, because it played the festival circuit for quite a while last year. I know there was some kind of like weird thing where like it ended up on iTunes and it was like free or something. Like there was a weird glitch that happened. But yeah, it's hopefully it'll come out like in a proper form soon. But highly recommend it. Overall, I thought that this year's What the Fest was good. I thought that the lineup wasn't quite as strong as last year's, but there were some decent things in there. I did see a movie that starred Shane Carruth too. I told you that offline, but
oh yeah, Shazam.
That was that's an inside joke that no one is going to get, by the way.
No, Shane Carruth is Shazam. in my world, I have locked that in as fact.
Yeah, he's in this sort of psychological horror movie that's coming out called The Dead Center. And he's pretty decent in it. The movie's okay. The director, Billy Sinisi, he did a movie that I saw a while ago called Closer to God that I thought was okay, but he does some really interesting things. He keeps his movies very like, it's like hard sci-fi, so there's a lot of like really kind of deep scientific methods in it and stuff.
Okay.
Shane Carruth also produced that movie, The Dead Center.
Okay. All right.
I got some other things that I can sort of rapid fire here. I saw The Legend of Cocaine Island. This is a documentary that's on Netflix right now. It's about this group of guys who set off to Puerto Rico to find a buried duffel bag filled with $2 million worth of cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, the craziness that happens along the way. This is a really fun documentary. It's perfectly suited for Netflix in that it's pretty light. It's a pretty light watch, but it's shot in a very fun, stylized way. It's directed by Theo Love, who you may know from a documentary he did a few years ago called Little Hope Was Arson. And I would recommend giving it a look. I have a review for this up on the site. I saw Castle Freak. This is directed by Stuart Gordon. I saw this on Friday night as part of Joe Bob's Last Drive-In on Shudder, which I am so thrilled that this actually got turned into a weekly TV series on Shudder.
First, I'm happy for you too, but I also just love. I pulled this up on Letterboxd just to see, what Castle Freak is. And I just let the first couple words is John has inherited a castle, and I was like, of course he has. Yes, that's what I wanted it to be. When you say Castle Freak, I was like, please tell me that someone just gets a castle. That would be wonderful. And sure enough, John just gets a castle.
He does. He inherits a castle. And so John, the John that you mentioned, is played by Jeffrey Combs.
God, it gets even better.
Yep. And his wife is played by Barbara Crampton.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
This movie is incredible. This came out in 1995. This is one that I've been meaning to watch for just years and years. And when they announced that it was going to be the next, because the way The Last Drive-In is they're going to be doing 2 movies every week. So every Friday night Joe Bob is going to host two movies. The first one was Chud this week.
Nice.
And the second one was Castle Freak. And I learned that they're actually remaking Castle Freak. Barbara Crampton and Barbara Crampton's involved. So anyway, loved Castle Freak. Had a great time with it. Very, very dark, very gruesome. Good stuff.
I also love that the last sentence, because apparently someone else is in the castle, and then the last sentence of the synopsis, which is just wonderful to me. An abused child left to die in the basement who has now become the Castle Freak. Like, to just say has now become the Castle Freak. Like,
yeah,
every castle has a freak.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
naturally
like there's a lineage that if you're
naturally
there too long, that you end up becoming the Castle Freak.
It's pretty great. You should consider checking it out maybe for Halloween.
Oh, I fucking watch listed it, buddy. Are you kidding me? A dude inherits a castle and there's a Castle Freak in it. It's just not what I was guessing from the title.
Yeah, it's actually shot in a castle too. Charles Band, it's his castle. Like, Charles Band bought a castle and he shot a bunch of movies there, and this is one of them.
What else would you do? You know,
if you owned a castle,
you have to make movies at that point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I learned that the cast actually lived in the castle too during the shoot.
That's the beauty of a castle.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-contained. You got housing for everybody. You bring in someone to do catering. You're good to go. You're golden. Just stay there. That's a studio. And now you're just making Castle Freak 1, Castle Freak 2, 3, the whole way down the line.
Oh, my. I saw The Highwaymen. This is directed by John Lee Hancock. This is on Netflix. It's the one with Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson about the Texas Rangers who brought down Bonnie and Clyde. It's a pile of crap.
Quick question, because I have to know. Was this a day of cleaning for you?
It was. I was working on some website updates, so I was doing other things while I put this on. I did not dedicate 100% of my time to this movie. So it was like one of these, I just got to put something on. It's bad. It's very bad. And I can't recommend this. It's laughable. It's atrocious, this movie. Probably one of the worst movies I've seen this year.
Wow.
Finally, I began my Larry Cohen journey, trying to fill in all the blanks by watching The Ambulance from 1990. This is starring Eric Roberts as this guy. He's actually an artist for Marvel Comics, and Stan Lee is in this movie as his editor. And he's walking to work and he sees this woman walking down the street. He decides to hit on her. So he's like chatting her up. He's trying to buy her stuff. And suddenly she feels like sick and she passes out. An ambulance comes to pick her up, and it's like an old ambulance. It's like a very old ambulance. And he tries to find her afterwards. Like, he goes to all the different hospitals. No one can find her. So he starts looking into this. He goes to the police and he tries to figure out what's going on. It turns out that this sort of mad scientist is out kidnapping people with diabetes in order to carry out experiments on them. He thinks he found a cure for diabetes, and he is trying to implant this thing in their spleen that will cure them of their diabetes. But a lot of them end up getting killed. And the secret lab that he has is under a nightclub.
Yes.
And he keeps the ambulance that he uses to kidnap people in the nightclub as like a visual like centerpiece item of the nightclub.
Is it his nightclub?
I think it's his nightclub.
I would hope so, because it would be odd if he's just parking an ambulance in the nightclub and the owner of the nightclub is just like, oh yeah, the ambulance is back, cool.
Yeah, I think it's his nightclub. I mean, this is a Larry Cohen movie, so there's a lot of
doesn't need to
question.
make
There's a
yeah.
lot of questions. There's a lot of really random conversations. Just first of all, I'll say that Eric Roberts is a perfect Larry Cohen lead because he just delivers those like sort of non sequitur, like just random lines perfectly. I mean, he's no Moriarty, but
No one is.
right. He's a pretty good replacement, I guess. And he has a wicked mullet in this. Oh my God, his mullet is intense. James Earl Jones is in this too. He plays a detective who likes to chew gum. There's this car chase scene where he's trying to chase down the ambulance, and for some reason the camera just keeps cutting to him shoving more gum in his mouth over and over and over again. And then he gets stabbed with a scalpel and he's still chewing the gum even while he's laying on the ground dying.
God, I love it. Did you watch this on Amazon Prime by any chance?
No, I didn't. I watched this on iTunes. You can get it on iTunes for like $4.
Because I forgot to 100% look into it, but I was last night looking through movies on Amazon Prime, and I came across Bone, obviously, and then I came across Q, the Winged Serpent, and I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if they have
a bunch. They have a few of them.
Whole, like, you know,
I think
the majority of Larry Cohen films on there.
Yeah, I think they might have the stuff too, and they also have Full Moon High, which was the second one I watched, which came out in 1981, I believe. And this is a comedy, PG-rated comedy, so it's fairly tame. And it stars Adam Arkin as this high schooler who it's basically Teen Wolf. Mm-hmm. It's about a high schooler who goes to Romania with his dad on business, and he gets bit by a werewolf, and he comes back. The interesting thing is, so it starts in the 50s. Like the movie begins in the 50s, and that's when he gets bitten by the werewolf during the big like during the Cold War scare of the 50s, and then he decides to travel the world. So for 20 years he travels the world, and then he comes back to his hometown in like the beginning, I guess the end of the 70s, and like his high school has been completely taken over by like gangs and stuff. It seems very racist. This movie is very homophobic and very racist.
Okay.
And it's not that funny. There's like maybe a couple funny parts, but I would say, I mean, it is very much a Larry Cohen movie. Like the script is all over the place and completely random. But as far as the sort of goofball comedy, I mean, it's almost at a level of comedy where it's like, Airplane or one of those. Like it's
okay. It's a spoof. It's a spoofer.
Almost.
Spoofing.
I would say it's pretty close to spoof territory.
Because it's kind of going off of the poster. I'm getting I'm getting spoof vibes. You know,
it's not very funny though. Didn't really work for me. Ed McMahon plays Adam Arkin's dad in it.
Yes,
and he's pretty funny, I guess. The scene when they go to Romania, the first thing he does is gets two hookers and tells his son to go visit some museums.
Oh God.
Yeah. So Full Moon High.
I wanted to go back to the ambulance because I just learned this. I did not know this. But I guess at one point Larry Cohen was attached to make a Doctor Strange movie. And I'm guessing that's why he has an in with Marvel and Stan Lee. Because I think it was even, I could be wrong, but I think it was in the 70s, like late 70s, early 80s. I would watch the hell out of that. I wish that existed somewhere.
Yeah, that would have been incredible. Larry Cohen's Doctor Strange.
Can
you imagine?
Fucking imagine.
Oh, man. Ambulance is great. I could recommend that. Full Moon High.
Oh,
Full Moon High. Yeah.
I'm 100% watching The Ambulance. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's take a look at what we have coming up in theaters this week. We got Shazam coming out.
Shazam.
It's
a fun title to say.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. This isn't horrible. I sort of enjoyed it. It'd be maybe a light recommend for me on this one. Pet Sematary is the other big one.
Ooh, all right.
I'm pretty excited about this.
Nice. I'm excited as well.
I heard that it's super dark, like darker than the original. So,
that's saying something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The original's pretty damn dark.
I mean, we know that they bring back the heel cut, the old Achilles cut.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see that hints of that in the trailer.
I'm just wondering, how do they vanquish their toddler son?
It's a daughter this time, but yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh man, little toddler daughter. They got a step in the neck.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm excited to find out though. We also have The Best of Enemies. This is the one with Sam Rockwell and Taraji P. Henson.
No, thank you.
Nah, this one doesn't look very good to me. Based on a true story. It's a cool story, but the movie itself, I think, will not be too good. High Life coming out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Very excited for High Life.
2015's High Life.
Mm-hmm.
I think
this is the new one from Claire Denis with Robert Pattinson, Juliette Binoche.
It feels like she's made plenty of movies since that. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is, but it just feels like it. It's just like the whole cycle of this movie, press-wise, died like 3 years ago, it seems like.
Well, I know it played, I think it was the New York Film Festival last year, and I wanted to go see it. It was on my list, and then something came up, and I couldn't see it, and I was really bummed.
Well, guess what?
Finally.
Guess what, buddy?
Finally.
Next weekend.
We also have Mike Leigh's Peterloo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. New Mike Leigh movie.
I kind of forgot about that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing Grace comes out. The Wind, which is a...
Is that the horror movie about wind? The prairie winds?
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Because I'm dealing with wind today and it's pissing me off.
The Public, which is the Emilio Estevez one. We talked about this actually on... it was on the podcast. I don't remember which episode or how it even came up, but we were talking about Emilio Estevez and where he's been. I think it might have been when we had Ryan watch Men at Work.
Yeah, I think so.
And I just happened to look up Emilio Estevez and saw that he was working on this movie, and now it's coming out.
All right. Yeah, Emilio.
It doesn't look half bad either. I saw a trailer for it. It looks pretty decent. The Haunting of Sharon Tate. We got Storm Boy. And that looks like that's pretty much it for theaters. A lot of stuff coming out this week.
That's a pretty decent slate of offerings there.
Let's see what we have on VOD. We have Soul to Keep, American Relapse, Flay, Pet Graveyard. Yeah. Yep. Pet Graveyard. You heard that right. No Alternative. And this is all on the 2nd. We have The Man with the Magic Box coming out on the 4th. That is looks like a sci-fi movie. An Orwellian sci-fi thriller.
Ooh. Set
in 2030 Warsaw. Also on the 4th, we have The Mummy Reborn.
Like the legit mummy?
No.
Oh. I I wasn't aware that they were rebooting that franchise.
Nope. It's just another mummy.
It's just another mummy. Born again Christian mummy?
I don't think so, judging from the cover.
Because that would be interesting.
It just says he has risen to take back what is his.
Still could be.
So maybe, yeah.
Could be. Jesus as the mummy.
Maybe. On Friday, we have The Haunting of Sharon Tate. We have Division 19 coming out. This is a sci-fi
Orwellian?
thriller. Is it Orwellian? Let's find out. It says, in the future, prisons have been turned into online portals where paying subscribers get to vote on what felons eat, watch, where, and who to fight. So, yeah, kind of. Maybe.
That's actually a pretty interesting concept.
In the future, there's nowhere to hide.
Sure isn't. Not even in prison.
When the world's most downloaded felon escapes, the authorities set a trap to reel him in. The bait is his little brother, who has so far managed to avoid detection.
Oh, God.
All right.
I like how what you said there, the synopsis, doesn't really sound anything, connected to the premise.
We also have Unicorn Store. This is going to be on Netflix. This is the one that is directed by and starring Brie Larson, and also stars Samuel L. Jackson, and the Wind. And that's pretty much it for VOD. Let's take a look at what we have on Blu-ray this week. Man, tons of stuff. We're getting to that time of year where things are ramping up. Got Bumblebee coming out. Really surprised with Bumblebee. Very, very surprised with how much I enjoyed this movie. Like, I think you would even like Bumblebee.
Maybe. We probably won't find out for quite some time.
And that's okay. I'm not, there's like some movies that I'll see and I'll be like, oh my God, Kevin has to see this movie. I would love for Kevin to see this movie, but this one, it's not one of those. So I think if you did see it, you'd be like, yeah, that was all right.
All right. Let's just go with that then. Let's just say I did see it. And I was like, yeah, that was all right. You were right, Adam.
Yeah, I guess we can.
Here we go. We can close the book on Bumblebee.
We got The Mule coming out. This is the Clint Eastwood one.
Oh, gosh, shut up.
We got Vice coming out. We have The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot.
There it
that's
is.
One that's one I would recommend. We got Terraformers from 2016 coming out. This is Takeshi Miike movie.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah, Arrow's putting that one out. That's one of his anime adaptations. I never saw it, but hopefully I will be taking a look at the Arrow release. We got Rust Creek from earlier this year coming out. Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase. This is the one that was just released in theaters like maybe 2 weeks ago or something.
Didn't the Nancy Drew movie just come out?
Yeah.
It's that one?
It's that one. Very quick turnaround.
Wow.
Directed by Kat Shea, who did The Rage Carry 2.
Oh, okay.
We got The Pledge coming out. I'm sorry, it's just Pledge. This is one that I saw at it was at a festival last year, and I actually thought it was pretty decent. Little horror movie. We have No Alternative coming out. We have Patrick coming out. Yeah, Patrick. This is it's about a pug. It's Patrick. I remember getting a ton of emails about this, and in the emails, Patrick was always dressed in a funny little suit.
Oh, Patrick.
He's so adorable.
So much so that he has a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
American Relapse is coming out. Help, I Shrunk My Teacher from 2015.
Earmark that for Ryan.
Yes.
National Teachers Day.
That's pretty much all I have. What about Criterion's this week?
We have 0.
0, huh?
0 criterions, unless you're seeing something else.
I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can send us your questions and topics to feedback@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @FilmPulseNet and @FilmPulseKevin. If you have a minute, take a look at our Patreon page, patreon.com/FilmPulse. Consider helping us out by becoming a subscriber. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.